Hello everyone, I hope you had a good time with chapter 1 and reading through the material of chapter 2, preparing yourself for chapter 2. So I hope that you're able to finish the assessment in your book for chapter 2. If you're already in here, that means you did really well with chapter 1 and you were able to pass the assessment. So congratulations on that, but we're gonna now need to speed up and get you all the way through the book and prepare you for the state exam. So if you already read chapter 2, that's great. Follow me. I'm going to highlight some things I want you to pay attention to. But let me ask you to pause for a second. If you have not read chapter 2 yet, do me a favor and do yourself a favor. Pause this video now. Go to page 11 and review chapter 2. Please. Review chapter 2, take the questions at the end, check the answers, make sure you got a decent grip of the material, and then come back and finish this video. Fair? All right, for everyone else that's still here, thank you for doing your assignment and prepping for this chapter prior to coming in. Let's go right into it. What I'm going to share with you is what I think is going to be on the state exam, okay? I want to ask you to highlight some things in the book. Pull out your highlighter. Pull out a pencil to mark some notes, okay? When you are dealing with chapter 2, we're going to be dealing with what a main office is and what a branch office is. There's some differences there. We're going to talk about setting up a trust account. We're going to talk about a very critical word called commingling. That's on page 12. Highlight that word. We're going to get into that in a minute. We're going to talk about guilty knowledge. We're going to talk about licenses, a trust account, waiver, broker cooperation. There's a number of key words we're going to bring to your attention. And let's get started now. So if you turn to page 11, right on top where it says main office as a place of business, I want you to understand that in here, I want you to go to the second paragraph and highlight the words that says the broker's name and the words licensed real estate broker must be displayed on the exterior. Highlight that. That's going to be on your state exam. Okay. Now, when we discuss a main office, okay, a main office can be in the home of the broker. As long as, just remember that, the main office, not the branch office, the main office can be in the home of the broker as long as what? As long as it has a private entrance that's visible from the street, right? So your entrance can't be from the backyard all the way in the back where no one could see it from the main street. It has to be a visible entrance that you could see from the street. And it has to be a separate entrance from the home entrance. Versus a branch office that can't be in the house of the broker or a broker manager. Make sense? So I want you to just jot that. That's going to be on your state exam. Each branch office must be under the direct supervision of a broker or a broker salesperson. And that branch must have a duplicate license. All right. Now, when we go back to the main office for a second, the main office has to display the licenses of all the agents, the salespeople working there. I like to have on our front door the name of the broker on the front door so that you could see it. Every office needs to have it displayed. It doesn't have to be at the front door, but it needs to be displayed. It could be on the window. It needs to say licensed real estate broker and the name of the broker. Okay, that's very, very important. What else do you need to have? You need to have a trust account. Okay, so you're going to see that on page 12. And this is where we get in some trouble, okay? Because the word commingling is a word of trouble. I want you to just really, really take that in. When you set up a real estate company, you have an operating account and you have a trust account. The operating account is the monies that you've earned through your agency. The commissions go into that account. The trust account is the account where you put other people's money. That's money that belongs to transactions. So let's suppose you write an offer, the offer gets accepted, the buyer writes a check, their deposit, to your brokerage. That money, where's that money going? Is it going into your operating account or is it going into your escrow account? Your escrow account, because it's the buyer's money, not your money. When you close on a deal and you earn a commission and it's payable to your brokerage, where does it go? In the escrow account or in the operating account? It goes in the operating account, correct? You cannot mix the two. Also, you can't take money from the escrow account and put it into the operating account. Because if you do that, that would be commingling of funds. When you commingle funds, you are going to get in big trouble. I promise. This is a problem. Now, let me tell you how it happens. Broker has a number of agents working for him or her. They have a number of pending transactions. They think that, look, I have 7 deals. There's about $85,000 coming over the next couple of weeks as they close. But right now, we don't have any money left and we need to pay rent. It's the first of the month. So the broker looks at their bank account, their operating account, and say, wow, we have $80,000 coming, but they're not in the account yet. These are commissions we've earned. They're under contract, but we get at closing. But we need money now to pay rent. Otherwise, we face the risk of being evicted. So what does the broker do? They look at another account. They look at the escrow account. Because they have 8-9 deals, there's a little bit of money in that escrow account. They look and they say, wow, there's like $8,000-$9,000 here. We don't need them, all of it. We don't need that money right now. Why don't I just borrow $1,500 so I could pay the rent and keep this office open? Why don't I just borrow that? That is the commingling of funds. It happens innocently, but there's nothing innocent about it. The state makes it clear. You can't do that. Now, you use somebody else's money for your business and you don't have it in the escrow account to bring at closing, and they can't close and they can't buy their home because of that action that took place. Now, let's suppose these 8 deals fell apart. Let's suppose you got to refund the money in the escrow account back to the buyers, but you already used it. That's how it starts. That's what commingling is. And that is a real problem in the state of New Jersey. And brokers that exercise that get in big trouble. Okay, so commingling of funds, I'm not going to spend any more time on it, but I spend a little bit of time on it because it will be on the state exam. You need to know it. So just highlight that area where it says trust accounts on page 12. And let's move on to some documentations. Okay, so there's regulation concerning documentation. Okay, there's documents that you need to hold on to. And you need to know this because it will also be on the exam. Okay, so when you accept the listing, you usually get a document called the listing agreement filled out. We'll get into the type of listing agreements down the road. But for now, when you have an agreement that's signed by a seller, you got to hold on to that for 6 years. 6 years, you got to hold on to that listing agreement. When you're working with a buyer, okay, and that buyer writes an offer, that offer gets accepted, you got to hold on to that offer as long as they close. They own the house now. You hold on to that offer for how long? 6 years. Listing agreements, sales contracts, 6 years. Escrow account records, 6 years. Now, what if somebody writes an offer, but their offer doesn't get accepted? The house is listed at $400,000. A buyer writes an offer. The agent submits the offer for $400,000, but there's a hot market. Somebody puts a higher offer. They get outbidded. How long do you have to hold on to that document? They never made the deal happen. Do you discard it right away, or do you hold on to it for 6 years? None. You actually hold on to it for 6 months. So 6 years on listing agreements, 6 years on sales contracts, 6 years on escrow documents and records, but only 6 months when it comes to offers that are not accepted. All right? That's going to be on your state exam. Let's move on to broker business relationships on the bottom of page 13. Okay? There's this wonderful thing called a waiver of broker cooperation that you need to know about, that I want you to highlight. It's on the bottom of page 13, waiver of broker cooperation. Now, in the event you list the property for sale as an agent, you list the property for sale, it is expected of you to cooperate with other brokers, to allow other brokers to show that listing, to sell that listing. Some brokers may want to hold back on cooperating with other brokers. Hopefully, they would want to earn double the commission. That's the thought, that if I hold back on sharing, I could earn more of the commission. But that's a problem. And you need to see why it's a problem. When you hold on to a listing, you don't cooperate with other brokers. You're doing a disservice to the seller. You are not exposing the home from every potential offer it could receive. Right? So let's suppose a seller does not want you to cooperate with other brokers. And it's not the broker. The broker's like, it's not me, it's the seller. The seller does not want me to cooperate with other brokers. Well, if that's the case, then there is a waiver of broker cooperation form, and there's a sample of it on page 13 and the beginning of page 14 that they need to sign. That waiver explains to them the seriousness of not cooperating, the impact of not cooperating with other brokers, okay? That gets signed. That needs to be available on demand if the state looks for it. If another broker requests that form, you have to be able to supply it, all right? Let's go to broker and buyer / principal. Okay, so more and more businesses in New Jersey are functioning as buyer brokers. In other words, they are being retained by buyers to help them find suitable properties. Again, these brokers and their associate salespersons are bound to specific duties to their principal. Their obligation to put the principal's interests first, however, still requires fair and honest dealing with other parties. We're going to get into that in the next chapter, but when you are representing a buyer or a seller, you owe them fiduciary responsibilities. They become the principal and you become the agent. We're going to get into that in chapter 3 in a lot more detail. For now, I want you to remember that although you owe fiduciary responsibilities to a principal, which could be a buyer you're working with or a seller that you're working with, you still have to act in good faith and honesty with the public, even if they're not your principal. Make sense? So if they're not your client, you still have to be fair in your business dealing. All right? That's potentially on your state exam, and that's why I'm highlighting it for you. When you operate as a dual agent, that will be on your state exam. You need to understand what dual agency is. That's more chapter 3 material, but chapter 2 touches on it. Okay? Although an agent cannot give first loyalty to 2 or more principals in the same transaction, the New Jersey Real Estate Commission allows a broker to represent both parties in a transaction, provided that the broker obtains the parties' written informed consent to dual agency. So if you want to represent the seller and the buyer in the same house, in some states that's illegal. You can't be an agent representing the seller and the buyer. In New Jersey you can. It's called dual agency as long as you have the written consent of both parties. All right? That's the possibility. Sometimes you don't plan it. You represent the seller, and the buyer comes into an open house, sees you there, says, I don't have an agent. Can you put an offer for me? What do you do? In the state of New Jersey, you can do a dual agency relationship where you're representing both sides. But remember, you need the informed consent to dual agency from both parties. From both parties. They need to sign a form that says you are representing the seller and the buyer. And the buyer needs to also sign the form knowing before the offer is written that you represent them and the seller. So it's upfront, it's out in the open, it's done ahead of time. And in the contract, there's room in the contract for that to be crystal clear. Make sense? That's dual agency, representing both sides. All right. How about a transaction broker, which we'll dive into? Again, this is all chapter 3 in-depth material, but we do touch on it. And in New Jersey, essentially, you can act as a transaction broker, meaning you're not providing either party, anyone with fiduciary responsibility. Make sense? All right, so scroll with me really quickly to the next page. I want to touch on price fixing. Okay, price fixing is on page 15. An agreement between competing offices to establish standard commission is forbidden. Okay, so that's called price fixing. It's illegal. Let's say I own a brokerage and you own a brokerage and 4 other friends own a brokerage all in the same town. We get together in a diner and we start saying to each other, going forward, let's make a policy to charge a minimum of 6% to everyone that wants to sell their home in this town. That's illegal. That's called price fixing. Such agreement is illegal. The state of New Jersey is clear on that. All right? So I want you to just highlight that. And then let's take a 5-minute break. We're going to take a 5-minute break and then we're going to close out this chapter, all right? All right, welcome back. Let's go to page 15 on the bottom. We're going to talk about probation, suspension, and revocation of a license. Okay, so the Real Estate Commission may investigate complaints against the actions of licensees or investigate on its own. It may place a license on probation. It may suspend a license, that's suspension, or revoke the license completely, which is revocation. In addition, fines for violations shall be not less than $250 nor more than $50,000. Fines are turned over to the state treasurer or state treasury. Now, I want you to highlight the procedure. I want you to go through the procedure and I want you to go through the violations. Highlight that and go through these bullet points, and I'm going to close out with the summary, okay? At the end of each chapter, I'd like to take my time and just read over the summary. You could listen to this just as a refresher and then get you prepared for the assessment you're about to take in a few minutes, okay? Here we go. The summary, if you want to follow me, go to page 16. And I'm going to lift up my book and read closely to you. And I may pause at any minute and make some remarks. Don't be distracted. I may start going on a story if something triggers an important thing on the state exam. Okay, so licensees are governed by the Real Estate License Act, also the rules of the Real Estate Commission. Now, salespersons may not accept compensation from anyone but their supervising broker. They may not hold deposits or maintain trust accounts. A salesperson may work for only one New Jersey broker at a time. Every resident broker must have a place of business in the state. A branch office requires a duplicate license and a broker salesperson as a supervisor. No office may be located in the home of a salesperson who is in the broker's employ. This avoids the practice known as license lending, in which a broker permits his or her license to be used by another person or business entity without actually supervising the business. Each broker maintains a special trust account, also known as an escrow account, for funds belonging to other persons. Broker must deposit such funds within 5, that's on your state exam, 5 business days of receipt. I'll repeat that. If you receive a deposit as a broker, that needs to go into the escrow account. It needs to go in within 5 business days. State exam. Brokers must deposit such funds within 5 business days of receipt. Mixing escrow funds with the broker's own money is called commingling, and it's a big problem. The broker must keep for at least 6 years copies of all financial records, listings, and contracts, as well as numerous other documents. Now, unaccepted offers must be kept for 6 months. Every person signing a real estate document must immediately receive a duplicate copy. So if you're out there getting a real estate listing, the owner that's giving you that listing needs to get a duplicate copy. That's so important. I mean, I've seen listing agents bring on listings into their offices blank. But because they didn't give a copy to the seller, they were able to fill in some parts of the expiration that the seller had no idea. A seller thought the listing was 6 months. It turned out to be a year. That's illegal. because they didn't have a copy. They need to get a duplicate copy. The broker must pay salespersons any commission due within 10 days. That's another important number. So a broker, once a commission is received, they have to pay the salesperson responsible for that sale within 10 days. That's important to note. That will be on the state exam. When a salesperson leaves, commissions are paid in accordance with an agreement signed by the salesperson and the broker. And the broker must make an account in writing within 30 days of termination of any funds still due salesperson. Listing fees are negotiable between clients and broker, and no contract can indicate that there is any set fee schedule. Every seller who lists real estate must get a copy of the Attorney General's Memorandum of Law Against Discrimination. We call it the NJ-LAD, Law Against Discrimination. Every listing that is received into an office, that landlord or that seller must get that Attorney General's Memorandum of the Laws Against Discrimination. It is crystal clear. It's been updated recently, and it explains the responsibility to an owner to not discriminate, and gives specifically all of the exceptions. It's a really, really well written memorandum. That will come up on the state exam, but that's such an important issue. I want you to keep yourself aware, not just for your state exam, but just for you. When you enter into this profession, you need to be able to be ready to take on listings and communicate with sellers and communicate with landlords. Okay, I'm gonna keep on moving, okay? Licensees can prepare sales contracts only on 1 to 4 family dwellings and single family lots. And every contract or lease prepared by a licensee must carry specific language notifying tenants or buyers and sellers that they have 3 business days in which to seek attorney review of the contract. Okay, so in New Jersey, you got 3 days to review a contract. Okay, if you're putting in an offer on a commercial property, licensed real estate agents do not touch that contract. You could use a letter of intent instead, but we do not write contracts on a multi-unit dwelling, 5 units and up. We don't write them on mixed-use properties. We don't write them on commercial properties. The attorneys, they'll write out those contracts. We could write a letter of intent stating that buyer so-and-so is interested in your property at this price point. These are some of the conditions. They intend to purchase it. If you are interested in receiving their offer, let's bring it to the attorneys and draft a contract. Make sense? It's important. A question may come up on the state exam and says, you know, who's responsible for preparing the contract on a mixed-use property, 2 residential, 2 commercial? The broker, the real estate agent, the referral agent, the attorney, the title company. You need to know that attorneys need to prepare that, okay? Let's go to the rest of the summary here as we wrap up. As a result of a New Jersey Supreme Court ruling in March 1995, all contracts prepared by licensees must have attached as the cover sheet the notice advising buyers and sellers of their right to hire an attorney. Although brokers owe special duties to their principal, which are called fiduciary responsibilities, we're going to get into in the next chapter. If they are functioning as agents, they must deal fairly with all parties to any transaction. Unless otherwise instructed by the client, brokers must cooperate with other firms to find buyers for a specific property. All written offers must be promptly transmitted to the seller. All advertising by brokers must clearly state that it is being placed by a real estate company. All ads for property must name the municipality in which the property is located. No ad can refer to financing without including the words to a qualified buyer. Rebate of a part of the commission may be paid by a broker to a buyer in the form of a credit or a check. The arrangement must be established at the start of the relationship. All parties, including mortgage lenders, must be aware of it, and the purchaser must be alerted to possible tax consequences. The real estate commission must give 10 days notice of a hearing if a violation is suspected. It can put licensees on probation or subject their licenses to suspension or revocation. Fines of $250 to $50,000 are also possible. All right, that was a summary. I know you're going to prep now to take your assessment and nail that assessment for chapter 2 so I could see you on the other side for chapter 3. Before we go on, I just want to remind you, before you go on to chapter 3, this is the chance to take an hour or two to go through chapter 3. Read it thoroughly. Take the exam at the end, all right? Grade yourself in your own book, and then go over to chapter 3 where I'll meet you there and do another summary of chapter 3 in about 30 or 40 minutes and just get you comfortable with the material. All right? I'll see you on the other side. Keep up the good work. You are doing phenomenal.